Shedeur Sanders just threw the kind of pass that makes a quarterback look good before the ball even reaches the receiver. Perfect spiral deep down the field right where Jerry Jeudy needed it. And then Jeudy dropped it. Just like that. What should have been another positive rep for Sanders turned into another conversation about Cleveland's receivers. And here's why that matters way more than one dropped pass. The Browns are in the middle of one of the most interesting quarterback competitions in the NFL. Deshaun Watson has the experience. Shedeur Sanders has the upside. Neither one has completely slammed the door on the other. And now Cleveland has created a preseason setup that could give us a much better idea of who actually has the edge. Let's start with that Jerry Jeudy play because the reaction to it has been intense. Sanders drops back, gets the ball out, and puts it deep. This isn't some desperate throw into double coverage. The pass gets to Jeudy in a position where the receiver has a real opportunity to make the play. And Jeudy doesn't finish it. Cleveland's training camp coverage has also noted other struggles from Jeudy, which is why fans are starting to pay closer attention. And when you're evaluating quarterbacks, every single rep matters. The quarterback has to make the read and deliver the football. But once that ball arrives, the receiver has a job too. Does one dropped pass prove Jerry Jeudy is suddenly a bad receiver? No, that would be lazy analysis. But does it make the play frustrating? Absolutely. Especially when every practice rep is being used to separate Sanders from Watson. Sanders needs receivers who finish plays because the Browns aren't just creating highlight clips. They're trying to decide who they trust to run their offense. A quarterback can make a great throw and still end up with nothing if the receiver doesn't finish. And Sanders doesn't have the luxury of wasting opportunities. But this story is much bigger than Jerry Jeudy. The Browns have been deliberately moving both quarterbacks through different situations during the offseason. Sanders has worked with both the first and second teams, while Watson has also received first-team opportunities. During minicamp, Sanders connected with Denzel Boston for a deep touchdown, and later found Isaiah Bond for another explosive score. Those plays are important because they show why Cleveland is still evaluating Sanders instead of simply handing the job to Watson. And Watson has something Sanders doesn't have: a long NFL resume. Watson has been a 3-time Pro Bowl quarterback and has played meaningful football at a high level. Sanders is still establishing himself. His rookie season gave Cleveland plenty to evaluate, but it also left plenty of questions. Sanders played 8 games and finished with 400 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. So Cleveland can't just look at potential. The Browns have to determine whether Sanders has developed enough to beat out the veteran. And that's where the preseason plan becomes extremely interesting. Watson is starting the preseason opener against Chicago, while Sanders is scheduled to take over during the game. Then against Buffalo, Sanders is scheduled to start, with Watson taking the second half. Some fans immediately saw Watson getting the first start and assumed that meant the Browns had already made their decision. But that's not what the schedule actually proves. Cleveland is creating 2 different opportunities for both quarterbacks to show what they can do. Watson gets the first major crack against Chicago. Sanders gets his own start against Buffalo. And there's another detail that could become extremely important. Cleveland is also hosting Buffalo for a joint practice before that preseason game. Think about that for a second. Sanders won't simply walk into the Buffalo game cold. He'll have a chance to work against a different defense during the joint practice. Then he'll get the preseason start. That gives Cleveland another opportunity to evaluate how he handles unfamiliar players, different defensive looks, and competitive reps. But don't misunderstand this. A joint practice doesn't automatically give Sanders an advantage. It doesn't guarantee anything. What matters is what he actually does with those opportunities. Because if Sanders struggles against Buffalo, nobody is going to care that the schedule looked favorable. That's the pressure. He has to turn the opportunity into evidence. And that's exactly what makes this competition so fascinating. Watson's return to game action is a major storyline by itself. He has missed significant time because of injuries, including consecutive Achilles problems, and he hasn't played meaningful football in nearly 2 years. So while Watson has the veteran resume, Cleveland also needs to see what he looks like right now. Experience from the past doesn't automatically mean you're the same quarterback today. That's the part people forget. NFL quarterback competitions aren't decided by resumes alone. They're decided by what the quarterback looks like now. And Watson is about to get his first major opportunity to show Cleveland exactly where he stands. At the same time, Sanders has to prove that his development has reached another level. He doesn't need to be perfect, but he needs to show progress. Faster decisions, better anticipation, cleaner reads, more consistency. And when the opportunity comes to make a big throw, He has to make it. That's why a dropped pass from Jerry Jeudy can be frustrating for Sanders without actually being Sanders' fault. The quarterback controls his part. He makes the read, he throws the ball, he puts it where the receiver can catch it. After that, the receiver has to finish. And that becomes even more important when you're evaluating a young quarterback fighting for his future. But now the story gets even bigger. Because if Sanders develops strong chemistry with younger receivers while some of the veterans struggle, the Browns have another question to answer. It's not just which quarterback looks better, it's which quarterback is building the most functional offense around him. And that's why Buffalo could become one of the biggest moments of this entire competition. Sanders will have the opportunity to work against Buffalo during the joint practice, then start the preseason game. That doesn't mean one game decides his future. It doesn't. But every rep adds another piece to Cleveland's evaluation. One third down conversion, one red zone drive, one explosive throw, one bad decision. One moment where the pocket collapses and the quarterback still makes the right play. That's how coaches build the picture. And Sanders now has a chance to fill that picture with some very important evidence. That's why the argument about who gets the first preseason start is missing the point. Watch what happens when the pressure arrives. Watch who makes the quicker decision. Watch who handles pressure in the pocket. Watch who protects the football. Watch who converts third downs. Watch who moves the offense. And most importantly, watch what the Browns do with the players around each quarterback. Because quarterback competitions are rarely just about the quarterback. They're about timing. They're about trust. They're about whether receivers know where the ball is going. And they're about whether the quarterback can consistently create positive plays when the defense isn't cooperating. That's why the Jerry Jeudy situation is worth watching. But it shouldn't become the entire story. Jeudy is supposed to be one of Cleveland's major weapons. He's a veteran receiver with significant NFL experience, and the Browns need him to be dependable. So when a deep ball comes his way in practice and he doesn't finish the play, fans are naturally going to react, especially when that pass comes from Sanders during a quarterback competition. But this is where we have to separate frustration from fact. One drop doesn't mean Jeudy is sabotaging Sanders. There is no evidence that he's deliberately doing anything to hurt him. Turning a training camp mistake into a conspiracy would be ridiculous, but repeated mistakes are still worth watching. That's the key. If Jeudy consistently drops catchable passes during the preseason, then this isn't just a social media argument anymore. It becomes a football problem. Cleveland has to evaluate the quarterback, but it also has to evaluate whether the offense around that quarterback is giving him a legitimate chance to succeed. And Sanders has already shown flashes with some of the younger receivers. Denzel Boston, Isaiah Bond, Casey Concepcion. Those names have been involved in the conversation around Sanders during camp, and Cleveland has seen him make explosive connections with some of them. That creates a fascinating question. What happens if Sanders develops strong chemistry with the younger receivers while the veteran group becomes inconsistent? Suddenly, the Browns have another decision to make. Not just which quarterback looks better. Which quarterback can build the